right, and welcome to the show all. I'm your host, Soli, and once again, we got another exclusive film making guest. We have Brendon Rogers from the Central Florida Film Festival up in Mount Fora. How are you, sir?
I am doing okay. I mean, we survived another year, so there's that.
Yes. So, Central Florida Festivals debuted in '06, and it's every spring been just unleashing numerous short films, student films, and independent features. And yeah, so you've been with the company like halfway through their development, and
No, not even close.
not even close. Okay.
No, no. It was started. We just finished the 17th year.
The
Um,
17th year. All right.
yeah, the festival was founded actually. Bob Cook, Ginger Cook, Brandon Arrington, who's now, I believe he's on the Osceola uh, County Commissioners Board. They had founded it at the Osceola Center for the Arts, and then it had moved to the West Orange Cinemas in Ocoee, Florida. It was there for a long time. That's where it was when we first stumbled on it. It was because we encountered the festival for the first time as filmmakers. Uh,
Nice.
and that was in 2015. That was in their 10th year. And at the time, Senflow had been held every Labor Day weekend.
Mm.
Yeah, no, it ended up getting handed off to me or to us in 2017. Our second year there, because we had a short in the festival in 2015, and then in 2016 we ended up having another short there, and both of them ended up performing better than we thought they would. And it, I kind of hit it off with the executive director Bob Cook, who was also the founder, and because we have a theater background, and we kind of like started chatting up about that, and then it turned into, would you be interested in maybe co-producing a film together, which subsequently we did. But when we were meeting about that, sometime in the fall of 2016, kind of out of the blue, he said, "Hey, what do I kind of want to retire next year to maybe get back into making films again. What do you think about taking over the festival?" Which surprised the hell out of me. I mean, we weren't, that's not even what we were meeting about. And so I
Right.
just, sure, because that was, that's usually the best, quickest way to get me to do something is to, if it takes me by surprise. So I said, sure, yeah, why not? And so 2017 was sort of a transition year. And then that Labor Day is when it officially got handed off to us. So I came into it in its 13th year. It was going into its 13th year.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of a reboot for the festival because we ended up moving it to an entirely different town. It's in Mount Dora. Different theater, different executive team, different board. So it's a whole new board of trustees, whole new team running it. So we just, yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a soft reboot for the festival itself. And the only other change we made was that because it kept it in September, but I don't know if you're familiar with Florida in September, but it's like the worst time to do anything.
Yeah, it is. What do you think in pop culture? Everyone likes to just act like, oh, it never rains,
No, it rains every day in September in Florida. Or there's, and that's the thing. It's like being in, I don't know, Nicaragua or something. You're getting heat exhaustion during the day.
Mm-hmm.
There's a torrential sort of thunderstorm or something going on at night. Or you have a hurricane, and that's actually why we ended up moving it out of September. Was in 2019, we ended up having to postpone the festival for 3 weeks because of Hurricane Dorian,
Oh,
which
wow.
creates all kinds of, havoc and pandemonium with our filmmakers, who, particularly the ones coming in, flying in from out of the country, because they can't just, rearrange travel plans on a dime. And, I had kind of a little come to Jesus meeting with my team and said, look, is there any reason why we're keeping this thing in September? I mean, it's a terrible month just for weather. Kids are going back to school.
It's not convenient for some of the parties, you know.
No, 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 no. You're right, and also, it's not like the oceans are getting any cooler, so we're going to keep having hurricanes. So I put an exploratory team together that was made up from a number of different like film people in Florida. So people that were also exhibitors, or that go to all kinds of competitions, things like that would know about it. And they kind of came back and said, well, the 2 months of the year, like juxtaposed to all of the other festivals and screening series and competitions that are in sort of a 150 odd mile radius from Orlando, like greater Central Florida, they said their two best options would either be to do it in November or do it in January. Well, I was like, well, we don't want to do it in November because then you try to do anything before the holidays, nobody's going to do it. They don't want to spend, well, no, the general public, donor, sponsor, they don't want to spend money. And then January, on the other hand, it's, if they know they're going to travel for the holidays, they can plan for it in advance, travel again. The third weekend in January puts us far enough away from New Year's and all that so that it's not inconvenient for any of the, for anybody who's traveling from out of the country. So that's kind of where it landed. And I reached out to our exhibition theater, the festival theater, which is at Epic Theaters. And I said, hey, would you guys be okay with us moving from September to January? And they had no problem with that either, because, January is historically where movies go to die as far as the box office goes. You're not doing all the wide release. And the third weekend, all the wide releases that would have come out around Christmas have already kind of done their thing. And now with streaming, they're like, a lot of studios are pulling the movies quicker so that they can pop them onto their screening services. So it's not like it's not like Labor Day or, well, it used to be Labor Day. It's not like Memorial Day weekend or something where it's prime real estate theaters. So that's kind of like the very circuitous way to get to kind of where we are now and how long like we've been running it. So we've been running it for whatever that is now. 2018 was our first year, so that's what, like 5-ish years from the first festival that we had. It's actually closer to 4 years, because it used to be in September, but yeah, and out of its 17-year history.
Gotcha. And do you feel like with a lot of your colleagues that everyone is speaking the exact same language and business philosophy, or has it been unpredictable, sometimes even a challenge to just make sure that, hey, everyone wants the best possible festival presentation, turnout?
When you say colleagues, do you mean like people on our team?
Oh yeah, just on your team, sponsors.
Oh yeah, no. Our team, the thing is, everybody on the team are filmmakers in some capacity. I mean, I'm an actor, writer, director, producer.
Nice.
Our board president is a screenwriter and a film professor. The president of our advisory board is a retired UMass film professor and former critic. Everybody on the team are filmmakers, whether they're directors or producers or writers. Everybody's really worked on movies in some capacity, and also theater. So we're all sort of like roll with the punches types, because you have to, it's an unpredictable medium anyway. So yeah, no, I mean, everybody's pretty much in lockstep with what we do. And as far as like what you would call a corporate philosophy that we would have, and it's really the fun part of that is that we can kind of do for filmmakers who are where we were, let's say 10-15 years ago, who are just starting out, or need the exposure, need the connections. It's the Jack Lemmon philosophy of like, once you get to like hit a certain plateau, it's your job to send the elevator back down to help other people. And that's kind of what we're doing.
Nice. how do you think everyone just maintains that just positive, just outlook, and also just reminding each other, hey, we're in it to win it, while also enlightening each other?
No, I think so. I think so. And also, but they don't really, it's not a team that needs to be like reminded of it a lot. So we don't really have to have, thankfully, we don't have to have a bunch of like powwows with, okay, get your stuff together, or, like this. It's really, it's basically just overcoming the challenges. But the other thing that we've been working very hard at is to um, expand upon what the festival is and the programs that we offer. So, for instance, we have a masterclass series that we've been developing. We started developing it a couple of years ago, but we had to put it on the shelf because of COVID.
Hmm.
I'd mentioned our board president is she's a college professor, and one of the things we're looking to do is at the the college she teaches at, State College in Leesburg, Florida. Um, that is something where we'd have a quarterly masterclass series that would focus on different, elements or aspects of filmmaking. I mean, it could be anything from, how to get screenwriting to music composition to CGI special effects. It could be distribution. There could be any number of those. And we created a fairly comprehensive quarterly series for that. But unfortunately, with the college shutting down and everything like that, we've kind of had to put it in a holding pattern. We're hoping that we can actually launch it in calendar year 2023. And it's also a scholarship generating program for humanities student that would be selected for it. So that's something we've done. We've increased the programming in the Central Florida Film Festival itself, as far as adding categories, trying to expand the panels we do, bringing in industry professionals that can work with the filmmakers, whether they're amateur or professional, who come out to the festival, and speak to different aspects about things. So whether it's how to get distribution, or how to get financing, or how to get a crew. We had kind of a soup to nuts panel this year where it was concept to completion. It was a microcosm because you're talking about a panel that's on for maybe 2.5 hours, but it's things that we can offer on the educational side as well as the material and the films that we screen throughout the festival weekend.
Very nice. And so you got a array of different genres. What do you think? Which genre do you think has hit more closely to the audiences? Who visit the festival. Which one do you think has a bigger, more popularity there?
Um, Genres, it's hard to peg down genres. Obviously, there's people that come in because when you have a short block, for example, let's say, well, these are comedies or these are horror. So people that like horror, which tend to be almost, I think, the best audiences in general, like even with the general public, because horror films or horror fans will give an unknown entity a chance.
Hmm.
So it's not predicated on, well, who's in it or what's it about. It's really more, I mean, they're interested in the concepts, but horror fans will more likely take a chance on something that they have no idea what they're walking into, even with wide releases. So, like, if you look at the box office now, I mean, what's making money? It's either these movies like like the Marvel films or horror films. So that's why these Jordan Peele movies are making money hand over fist, because people love horror, and as long as your last movie was good, they'll come out and support the next one. So we do get those at the festival, even though we're not horror specific. Although those festivals do well, horror and religion festivals, like faith-based movies, usually if it's a genre-specific festival, those two tend to do rather well. For festivals like us that kind of run the gamut in terms of what we select and what we screen, usually more than a genre, it's short films as
Hmm.
opposed to feature films. Because when you go to a film festival, regardless of the size and regardless of how many days it runs, time is your enemy. It was like going to a theater fringe festival. You only have a certain amount of time that you can spend seeing all the things you want to see, films, panels, etc. And one of the problems you have is time. So let's say there's a feature film that's 2 hours. A lot of times, regardless of what that movie is, whether it's a narrative film, whether it's a documentary film, one of the things is people before the film starts will ask themselves, well, this movie's 2 hours. If for whatever reason I don't like it, regardless of how well the movie's made, if I don't like it, that's 2 hours I can't get back.
Hmm.
As opposed to if they went to, say, short films. So if they go to a short film screening, regardless of the genre, and our short blocks tend to run anywhere between an hour and 10 to an hour and 30 minutes worth of films of all lengths with the shorts. At least they say, well, if I didn't like this movie, it's going to be over in 10 minutes. I might like the next one. So they
Right.
get more variety. They can like literally see more movies in the short blocks. So those tend to attract audiences a little bit more than the feature length, unless the feature length is something that they like absolutely know that they're going to get a charge out of. So like if it's a documentary about a subject that they're really, really into, then they'll just go and see that. But by and large, I would say it's, at least from our experience, it's less the genre and more, is it a short or a feature?
Mm, gotcha. And uh, altogether, any directing duos that you see kind of being crafted out of this festival? Have you seen any collaborations just kind of start rising?
Yeah, here and there, yeah. I mean, I think some of that actually even happened before it was handed off to us. I mean, we have new filmmakers, obviously, that submit every year, but there are also returning filmmakers. The vast majority of them are local.
Hmm.
Let's say the greater Orlando area, because where we are, like Mount Dora, a lot of people that don't live in Florida don't know where Mount Dora is, although some people strangely do. And it's kind of like queer to me that they would know that. I remember when we were, the year the festival was being handed off to us, Robert Carradine was one of the guests that Bob Cook had at the festival in his last year. And he kind of came up to me and struck up a conversation about, oh, you're moving it to Mount Dora. That's so cool. Mount Dora is a neat little town. And I'm thinking, well, how the hell do you know where Mount Dora is? Like, you live in LA, you know. So it's just a kind of a weird thing. But so we're about like say 45-ish, depending how fast you drive. We're like 45-ish minutes northwest of Orlando. So a lot of these Metro Orlando filmmakers um, will kind of know each other, and they also will collaborate. And we love to see that, you know. Or if filmmakers like, if we're their first film festival and they're making their premiere, but then all of a sudden they'll call you like a year later and say, oh, hey, you know, I got distribution, or, oh, you know, we're in these other festivals or something like that. It's always nice because we're very tight knit with our filmmakers as much as we can be. And,
Hmm.
you know, we support their success with the rest of their festival circuit tour. And also hopefully they do get somewhere with the movie.
Very nice. What are free pieces of advice you want to leave with just anybody getting into this industry?
As far as submitting to festivals or the industry itself?
Uh, you can do either one, but definitely when applying to festivals, definitely if you could shed a little light on that.
Um, well, I think as far as the industry, it's easy because there's no right answer for it, other than just keep trying to work. I mean, whatever, you know, in whatever capacity that it is. If you're a filmmaker, go out and make movies. You know, don't waste time, you know, trying to figure out the right time. There's no right time. And I mean, that's ubiquitous. I think whether you're a screenwriter or a director, a producer, all three of those, if you're an actor, show up and do the best job you can and keep doing good work. And that's where success kind of finds you. So a lot of these people that are famous, I mean, they'll tell you that fame's kind of an accident. It just usually happens because you show up and you just keep doing a good job. And then you're either prepared for it or you're not when opportunity knocks. As far as the festivals go, I do your research. Festivals, the vast majority of festivals are on Film Freeway. That's where the filmmakers usually submit to. But do your research, like look at the festivals. Like if you're going to like plan a festival tour, which is sometimes the closest that you get as a filmmaker that you get to a wide release, especially if the festivals are held in movie theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Do your research, like know what festivals you're looking at in what regions. A lot of times you should do them close to home. So if you lived in Orlando, we would be a great choice. There are obviously a bunch of other, I think on Film Freeway, there's close, if not more than 200 film festivals only just in the state of Florida alone. Film festivals are like a dime a dozen now. I hate to say that, but do your research. I mean, is the festival, is it a startup or is it a legacy festival? Has it been around for 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Is it screening in a movie theater or a community center or somebody's garage? Might sound silly, but you never know with festivals. You have to do your research. What do they require? What prizes or awards do they give? Is the film that you're sending applicable to what that festival programs for? And you can always reach out to the festivals. You can, whether or not they're accepting submissions at that time, you could always call and say, "Hey, I got this movie. Do you think it would be a good fit?" So that would be like the first one, and I'm trying to compress this too as well for your time. I don't want to sound like a rambling crazy person, which I am. The other thing too is make sure. I guess this kind of goes both ways, but I mean, make sure if you're going to pay anybody on your movie, pay the sound guy,
Yeah.
because sound is the only element of a film that's purely technical. So, your director of photography might like shoot something at a weird angle. An actor might make a weird choice that ends up in the movie. The music might be something odd or misplaced. All that stuff can be chalked up to artistic sensibilities on the part of the director, but bad sound is bad sound.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a number of films that get submitted where the sound of audio just cut out. And I've reached out to filmmakers before they're selected while it's going through the judges. And the judges are kind of like, or the selection committee. And there's like, yeah, is this the master sound or is this like a work print where the master's not in?
Right. It's something not get translated. I've been to it before. I was at one festival, which I'll remain unnamed, and it was just very frustrating because these people have been doing it for like 2 years now. So it was like, well, there's no excuse. Like, I know you have a budget, but why don't you get, if there's one thing, people can forgive out of focus shot. They can forgive a plot hole or an acting mishap if it's otherwise already decent. But yeah, if they can't hear anything, they're just going to walk out.
Well, and a lot of times that I've seen that when like again, people on the selection committee will come back to me and say, "Hey, is that like is that the work print or is that the final sound mix?" Because there's a difference. Like not all festivals do. We do, as long as they tell us, the filmmakers who are submitting, "Oh, by the way, this is a work print. Like this isn't the final. Like what if we get selected, we'll have a final mix and a final print and all that." Because again, everybody on our team's filmmakers. So like I can watch a work print and know, okay, well, this is a little jinky, but it'll get fixed. But when they come back and say, no, that's the final sound mix. It's like, yeah, you realize, because it's something too, and I don't know if you've noticed this. I'll say to them, you do realize like that scene where your audio upcuts or just drops like that, you could have cut that scene. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't even need it it wasn't even germane to the plot. Like, you could have cut it and nobody would notice it. So killing your darlings is a thing too. Like, but that's something that'll help you with festivals. Knowing, being very cautious about how you ask for waiver codes is something, because we get, dozens and dozens every year. We get requests by filmmakers who say to ask for a submission fee waiver on
Oh,
film.
wow.
Now, which I can intellectually, I get it. But the thing is, most festivals you deal with, ours included, we're nonprofit. So a lot of the income that we get for operating costs to put on the festival comes from sponsors, donors, grants, submissions, and then, selling passes for the event itself. We don't have like giant corporate coffers. So what we get these emails from filmmakers who a lot of times they shotgun email. You could tell they send it out to like hundreds of film festivals
Mm-hmm.
in the hopes that maybe 5 of them will say, sure, we'll give you a waiver code. And then maybe a couple of those will actually let them into the festival, like they'll get accepted. But what you don't want to do is that. And the other thing that I was almost like stunned, almost like, when you see a goat like get stunned and fall over. I kind of had that reaction. I got an email last year where a filmmaker, and I'm not lying, I'll even send you the email just to show you, like, yeah, this is something that happens. A filmmaker sent us an email that said, hey, we made this movie, it's about this. They sent the trailer and all, and they said, yeah, we got accepted into like all, and they listed, I don't know what it was, like 10 festivals that they got accepted into. And they said, but we kind of blew through our festival budget. Is there any way that you would like give us a waiver code to submit to you guys? And the way my brain immediately translated that was, so, hey, we got into all these festivals that we really wanted to get into. Now will you let us into your piece of shit for free?
Yeah, what the hell?
That's exactly what that sounded like. And it's like, the last thing as a filmmaker that you would want to do is try to go at a film festival to get an entry fee waiver by saying that you're broke, because a lot of these festivals are broke or scrapping for every dollar that they can get to put on the best festival possible for the filmmakers, so they have a great experience. Our venue's not cheap. What we take to put on the festival for the filmmakers isn't cheap. So that's something too. If you're going to ask, and we actually just did this on a panel at the festival, our festival a couple weeks ago. If filmmakers do want to ask for a waiver or feel or they are out of money, the best way to do it is to research the festival and then explain to the festival how, if they get a waiver and then if they get selected, what they can do to help the festival, whether it's promotional, they're going to bring a bunch of people who will pay to see their movie, whatever that thing is, it becomes cui bono. Like, well, if we're doing for you, what are you going to do for us? And I don't mean for that to sound stingy. It's just like the economic reality of running a film festival. And
Absolutely. And after hearing those guys, like you say, just kind of act like demean you or act like, oh, well, we just can't bother to be professional, is don't get me wrong, that this kind of brought me into another question, how some people won't look at the terms of use of a festival and they realize, oh, in order to be considered or even have it played, you have to actually be in attendance, and sometimes you just got to say, well, I'm not able to make it, but
right.
No one else has to know that. It's just,
well, and we don't. Well, that's not attendance is not a requirement for us to be selected. And if we did, I think if any festival did, it would be a very cruel thing. We have, especially the last couple years with COVID, which we were able to sidestep and not do a virtual festival, only by virtue of the fact that we did move the festival out of September, just to get it out of hurricane season. But we did that at the end of 2019 before COVID was a thing. And then all of a sudden COVID blew up in whatever it was, February or something of 2020. So by pushing the festival 4 months out, we didn't have to worry about a festival in the calendar year 2020. It would have been September 2020, but it instead became January of 2021 for our, whatever that was, the 15th annual festival. So we were able to have an in-person festival because our theater was opened up by then. But again, if we had required filmmakers to be there in person, a lot of our filmmakers who were from, let's say, parts of Europe, I know the UK for sure, parts of like the Middle East, parts of Asia, they were under different quarantine and lockdown protocols, and they wouldn't have been able to make it. And we wouldn't have penalized them for that. I mean, we would love it for our filmmakers to show up, but it almost never happens. We've never had 100% turnout any year for all the filmmakers that we select. But that's, again, it's not a requirement. But I'm not trying to double back, but the ones that are asking for entry fee waivers a lot of times are laurel hunters too. They just want to get accepted into festivals so they can get a bunch of festival laurels on their poster, not realizing that as a filmmaker, if you clutter, it doesn't matter. You could get accepted. Let's say your movie's phenomenal and you get accepted to 100 film festivals. That's great. But don't put 100 laurels on your poster, because a lot of times people that like run festivals start to ignore that, especially if it's nobody that anyone's heard of. Like if you get accepted into like, TIFF, Telluride, South by Southwest, Tribeca, so okay, great, put it on your poster. But if you've got like, I don't know, something from the I'm trying to think, like the Mosquito Bite, Missouri Film Festival or something that nobody's heard of. Like, yeah, don't put that on your, if that's if you have 100 of them like that, don't put it on there. Just pick the best, pick the ones that are the most either long in the tooth or prestigious or have some other element to them that'll make you shine, because sometimes less is more, and do it that way. If you do too many laurels, you're almost looking like, that like middle-aged dude that buys like a Lamborghini or something, like, look at me, and you're like overcompensating for something.
Well, that, and they kind of want to be the first one still, right, to premiere your short, and if they see that you've applied to like 11 others, they're already probably less likely to take it.
Oh no, for sure, yeah. And I think, but again, part of that, like with the waiver crowd, a lot of that comes to the fact that when you're, as a filmmaker, when you're putting your film, when you're in pre-production, even when you're in development, always do, almost like when you do a film budget and you add a contingency, you should almost think of a film festival run or a film festival budget at that point. And this way, we're going to need X amount of dollars to submit to festivals once the film's done. Because once the film's done, you shouldn't then think about, where are we going to go and how are we going to submit to festivals? That should always be a part of the thinking of where the money's going to come from.
Yep.
And I lost my train of thought. You had something good too. But as far as the, you were talking about premiership. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a number of festivals that require premiership. Some for features, some for shorts, some for both. You see it more with features, far more with features. Now, there are some festivals that maybe do require premiership status for a short, but there's some absolutely, like, you're not getting into Sundance or Toronto or something unless you're the world premiere, as far to my knowledge. Unless they may have changed the rules recently, or since I checked last, but a lot of those festivals do require it to be the world premiere of the film. Other ones are regional. So, for example, I'm going to call them out on this, but I'm not using it as a strike. And I have friends on their board and who run it. The Orlando Film Festival, which is the closest festival to us in terms of name, size, or comparative festivals in this region. The Orlando Festival does require a feature film to be the world premiere in whatever the mile radius is of Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So if they, let's say, like back when Senflow was in front of Orlando in the calendar year, if there was a film that Senflow accepted and Orlando accepted, Orlando would disqualify it if it screened at Senflow before Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something to pay attention to. Again, but this goes back to that thing we were saying with like looking in the rules and looking at what are the requirements of the festival, because it's going to be shame on you or shame on whoever on your team that submitted it if you submit your film to a festival and you get accepted without having read the rules, and then all of a sudden you have to withdraw because there's a requirement in there that, let's say, got overlooked, because you're not going to get the money back for the submission. You're out. You're out, whatever that is. And sometimes it can be quite high depending on the festival. So that's why it's very important for filmmakers to be, to do their diligence and to read the rules and to see what the requirements are on a festival by festival basis, because all festivals are different. Some festivals will require DCP copies of their films for features, but not for shorts. Now, we require DCP copies of the films for features and for shorts, because that's the format we require them in, because our festival theater uses DCP projection, and we want the films to screen exactly the way the filmmakers intended them to. And if we ran them through laptops and a DCP projector, I mean, you got frame rate issues, you can have coloration issues. If the file's corrupt, it'll get kicked out. And then you have the filmmaker completely embarrassed because all of a sudden that happens to their movie in real time in front of an audience. So that's why it's important. I mean, we do a lot of follow-up. I mean, we don't make a secret about it. It's the number one rule. If you look us up on Film Freeway, the number one rule that we put in there is you can put whatever format you want on Film Freeway, but if you're selected, we do require a DCP for your screening at the festival. And it's so weird to me that filmmaking is such it's so difficult, and being a filmmaker requires such ingenuity in terms of coming up with a really cool concept and having to figure out, okay, putting together a crew, getting gear, getting locations, getting effects and costumes, depending on what the genre is, or VFX, maybe practical effects, and then doing that for very little to no money. And they do these a phenomenal job putting the movie together. And then for whatever reason, they get to that stage and they find out that, oh, I need to send a DCP. They don't know what a DCP is. And then all of a sudden, all this ingenuity goes right out the window and they forget what Google is. So look it up. And we tell them all the time, look, we can't, because of our relationship to our curation partner, because they have to send it to a company that we use in Los Angeles, who are a professional DCP company. We use those because of their quality control checks. For us to do the QC checks on our side would take so much time that even our programming director and our programming coordinator would have to sit there looking at 80, 90 hours worth of DCP footage. They just can't. So
it's not going to happen. Yeah.
Well, no, and we're a nonprofit. Nobody on our team is getting paid to do what we're doing. They're all volunteer staff, essentially. So they wouldn't be able to do that. And so we do use a curation partner. And it's free. And we tell the filmmakers, it's free to send your DCP. No one, you don't have to pay for it. If you use them to make the DCP, it's not free. But you can absolutely make a DCP for free and send it to them. And they freak out about it. And that's one of those things where we have to because of our agreement with our curation partner, we can't explicitly tell the filmmakers, okay, go to this site, do this, and then send it over,
Mm-hmm.
because that we're not supposed to do that. That's just, it's part of the agreement that we have with this particular company. Um, but outside of that, we can talk in code and say, look, you can look online, like this is not, you absolutely can make a DCP for free if you go onto this, certain sites. It's like, Google it. I'm not trying to be dismissive about that when I have to talk to them, but I'm like, just if I was like, I promise you, if you Google it, how to make a DCP for free, you'll
Yeah.
it'll kick back with a lot of stuff. So it's just weird how that kind of happens, where filmmakers panic about it. But again, that boils down to uh, how a lot of times filmmakers won't do the research on the festivals um, before they do it. And so that's kind of like all the things I think that filmmakers can do to help themselves get into different fests.
Mm-hmm.
And also, especially the ones that are just starting out, start local. you know like if you live in Orlando, send it to us, send it to the Orlando Film Festival, send it to any festival that's in the area. If you live in Austin, Texas, send it to the Austin Film Festival, or send it to all the other festivals that are in the greater Austin area. Because if you start local, especially if you're just starting out as a filmmaker, it's a lot easier for your team to go to a local festival and support your film than if you sent it across the country, because then they have to travel. Most festivals won't pay their submitters to fly to that city or to lodge them. Again, they just don't have the budgets if they're a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to. If I hit the, whatever what is it tonight, the Powerball or whatever it is tonight. If I hit it and all of a sudden I'm sitting on a big giant, Lord of the Rings dwarf pile of gold, I'll fly all the filmmakers out and lodge them. If money wasn't an option, I'd love to do that, and I'd love for them to all get to see their movies in a state of the art movie theater. Um,
Right.
it's just it goes back to the economic realities of it, which is sort of um, which is the burden of every filmmaker, I think. Us too, because again, we're all filmmakers. So every time we go to make a movie, it's the same thing. You're starting at zero, trying to do the best thing you can and put the best team together, and ultimately make the best film that you can under whatever circumstances or adversities that you're contending with.
Yeah, it's just very exhausting because uh you you understand how, like you say, how some don't have a budget, and then at the same time is like, well, do you value your time?
Sure, no, but you have to do that. It's like, oh well, oh, we need some character in my movie dies. Okay, well, who do I know that has a funeral home? And and you do stuff like that, or and hopefully you do it without having to pay for it.
Yeah,
Is
hopefully.
often the case, I think, with a lot of filmmakers. Because again, if you don't have to pay for something, that's better still. It's more money you have to feed the crew and pay the sound guy.
Totally.
You know, but yeah, I mean, that would be my response as far as submitting to festivals. Is just really, I mean, take it seriously. Don't consider it an afterthought, because it is sometimes the only wide release an indie film will get, even a short film. But if you go and you get into 5, 10, 20, 30 film festivals, and you can go and make it to those festivals and network with the other filmmakers, that's your wide release. Just like if you were playing in at a distribution deal. So treat it seriously, and that can benefit you, because especially if you have a festival, like I know for us, like we go really hardcore on creating almost a petri dish for networking at our festival, with
Mm-hmm.
mixers, and trying to do everything we can to encourage filmmakers to come and stay and meet with other filmmakers. You could meet your next producing partner there, or your next collaborator, whatever it is that you're going to do. Or maybe it's a distributor or somebody who loved your movie and said, hey, I want to work with you. Or an investor who might say, I'll put money and say, I loved your movie. I saw what you did with 10 grand. I want to see what you do with 100 grand or whatever it is.
Something.
So it's so important. You have to treat the festivals, especially the indie ones these days, as almost mini film markets to a degree, especially if they have distributors showing up.
Very nice. Well, what expectations do you guys have anticipating for this coming year in 2024? Or too early to tell?
No, I mean, well, it's always one of those like easiest questions to answer, and then it sounds like a complete non-answer. I know we'll have movies.
Nice.
We'll have a bunch of indie films. Like every year, you never know what you're going to get, obviously. But I think that's true of the audiences as well. I mean, going to if you're a film lover who goes to film festivals, it's different than going to a Hollywood film or studio film. It's almost like a Scotch drinker. You drink a blended Scotch if you want consistency. You drink a single malt if you want adventure. Well, you go to a film festival, you're getting adventure. You want to go to a studio film if you want consistency. Particularly because indie filmmakers aren't bound by the same constraints that Hollywood is, because most indie filmmakers are doing it because they love movies, or they love to make movies. They love to tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
Any insert name of giant multimedia conglomerate Hollywood studio here, the studio doesn't have that luxury, because Hollywood long ago has had they're in the unfortunate position of having a business model that contains an art form, and art is subjective. You never know what people are going to want to see. It doesn't matter who the biggest box office smash actor or director is. If they don't want to see the movie, they're not going to go see it. The audiences, I mean. So it doesn't matter who you have in it. So if Hollywood wanted consistently to make money, they would have gotten into a widget making business. I mean, make anything other than movies. Make neckties, make baseball hats, make sneakers, make pens or pencils or golf clubs. Don't make movies, because it's art, and you never know if that movie's going to land or not. But that's their business model. So that's why you see so many sequels, prequels, remakes, reboots, soft reboots. I think that's why you see that. Whereas any film loving audience that goes to festivals is going for the adventure. They don't care that they don't know who these filmmakers are or these actors are. They've never seen the movie. They like to do it because it's like, you know what? We're going to buy a pass and we're going to go see some crazy stuff that we probably would never see, and maybe meet the filmmakers if they're there. So it's a totally different audience that goes to festivals. Even though, I mean, it's tough for us too, because we have to fight to cut through the noise and get people kind of off their couches and off the streaming services and out to the theaters. But in the end, it's worth it. And there's always people that show up that just love indie film. And those are the best audiences, because they'll react to what they see, or they, get to talk to filmmakers and talk to them about their movie in ways that they would never have that level of engagement with anything else.
Isn't that wild too?
It is. Well, and that's the thing, is you don't know. You there's no way of knowing that the person you're talking to at a festival is not going to be the next. I don't know. I mean, you could say Spielberg or Chris Nolan, or
they might be onto something, but just not have the people skills down yet, or vice versa. They do have the people skills, but they don't have the talent down yet. But you don't know until
they could be 10 years away from being the next Rian Johnson. I mean, Rian Johnson, what were Rian Johnson's credits other than Looper before he got tapped to direct a Star Wars movie?
Yeah, Brick was a big sci-fi neo-noir.
Brick, Looper, but like a lot of that's like, that wouldn't be like, and then Star Wars, I mean, that's quite a jump. So that's like, somebody sends a movie to a film festival, and 10 years later they're directing Star Wars or something, or whatever. You don't know if they're not, and that's why we love to celebrate the success of filmmakers that are part of our extended filmmaking family, that have sent us movies, and we love to hear from them and say, and some of the movies that they send us are just utterly unbelievable. Doesn't matter what genre, doesn't matter what length. We get movies. I get short films where I just want to show people. Like, I could put a festival together just of selected shorts that were just so good that I just want people to see these movies. It's like you got to see this kind of thing, and the filmmakers are usually very like contrite and not anything. They're not like, they don't have an arrogance about them or anything like that.
That's
Our
good.
best we had one this year. It actually won 2 awards. It won for best suspense thriller short, and it won for best foreign project.
We'll return after these messages.
Hello and welcome to Culture Shocked, the pop culture podcast brought to you by 4 aging millennials and our outdated opinions. Join us every Tuesday as we discuss movies, TV, games, and even music, new and old.
Dude, what do you think you're doing?
Are you seriously trying to record a promo without us right now?
Well, yeah?
Dude, you can't just do the promo by yourself. Who's gonna listen to that?
Yeah, and you probably haven't even told them that we're a pop culture podcast where we always agree on everything. For instance, the Sam Raimi trilogy, easily being the best of the Spider-Man movies.
No. But I think we can all agree that Jaws is a classical masterpiece.
Nope, don't like that. But we do all agree that the sequel trilogy of Star Wars is the best in the Skywalker saga, right, guys?
That comment is so ridiculous, I don't even know where to
Anyways, that'll do it from all of us here at Culture Shock. Thanks for listening.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in, it's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
We let things pile up in the DVR, we add them to our queues, we wait for the DVDs and Blu-rays. We time shift. The Time Shifters Podcast. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, superheroes, comedy, action, film, television, maybe some not-so-current events. Find us on iTunes or at timeshifterspodcast.com.
Cool thing about Blind Knowledge is we are in multiple countries. We are worldwide all across the globe. We are in the US, we are in the UK, we are in Canada, Germany, India, Japan. We're in Australia, y'all. BlindKnowledge.com. Now back to the feature presentation.
Was it like a movie about like Russian gangsters? It was a 15-minute like Russian mob crime movie that was like phenomenal. It was utterly unbelievable. And the filmmaker, she's like, she can't, if she's 21, then that's about as old as she is. And she's like a kid who's studying filmmaking in Scotland right now. I had to write visas for her to attend the festival this year, only because of the issues that are Russian nationals are having because of the business in Ukraine. They're having a tough time getting into the U.S. So I had to write 2 visas for her to say, yeah, she's attending the festival. This is why she's coming into the United States and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, that's a great example of a filmmaker. Like if you saw her, she looks like she'd be at like I don't know, like a Burning Man concert or something like that.
Yeah.
Last person in the world you would look at and think, oh, yeah, she just made this phenomenal, now award-winning movie about the Russian mafia. It's so interesting. It's the people you meet are just phenomenal at festivals. Filmmakers should go to festivals regardless of whether that they have a film in it.
Yeah, it's a good networking thing. What are skills that you recommend for those trying to network with others, just other than just be kind and courteous? It seems like we have to sometimes remind everyone just stuff that should already be second nature.
Well, yeah, I mean, kind and courteous that's true. Always, I think also, and a lot of filmmakers that have experience with it already know this, because when you go to a film festival, and you have a screening of a film that you did and it's in a festival, it's different than if you do a private screening. Even if you rent a theater, all the people that you invite, friends, family, your crew and your cast and their friends and their family, they're all on your side. They all want your movie to be great because they have a stake in it, or they have a stake in you. And they're not going to tell you your movie sucks. They're just not, because they're a friendly audience. But when you go to a film festival, that's like sending your kid to kindergarten for the first time, because you're not in front of a friendly audience. You're in front of an audience where, if they're filmmakers, they all think their movie's the most special thing in the festival. It's personal to them all. So I think if you can, I think if you know that, I think if you understand that they care everybody about as much as their project as you do, and just be open. And I mean, they're people like anybody else. You're going to get people that some are really friendly, some who aren't, some who are difficult, some who are easy to talk to. And it's, where you would go to any sort of networking convention of any kind to meet with people. It's like going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting. You're going to meet people that, they think their business is the best, but how can we work together to do something? Is there something, do I have a quality that you need for your next movie? Do you have a quality I need? How can we help each other out? And really embrace the fact that we're all sort of in the same fight. We're just doing it. We're just fighting on different fronts, really.
Right. It seems like it's a lost art at times. It really does. It seems like half the time everyone's so busy pitching themselves to each other instead of actually just worrying, hey, do we get along first? Do we actually want to work together?
If you pitch, you never know either. I mean, I've had that too, where people, we've had guests at the festival in years past who have pitched to us, I shouldn't say that. They've tried to pitch to us. I try to stop that immediately when they pitch to me anyway, or people on the night.
Right. You don't need a script.
Well, no, not even that. We've had to say, well, wait, if you want to pitch me, that's fine. If you're staying in town, your hotel probably has a computer and a printer, or the front desk does. I want you to give me an NDA before you tell me what it is you're going to tell me.
Anything else? Yeah.
I want a non-disclosure agreement from you that I sign, and it's very specific, because I've told them, look, if I'm working with various production companies and we have anywhere, from 20 to 50 different pieces of IP, I don't know that you're not going to tell me something that we're not already working on. And then all of a sudden we turn around and make that movie, and you sue me because you told me at a film festival.
Right.
So always have a non-disclosure agreement, if you're going to pitch something to somebody, because first of all, it's just smart. I mean, I'm not saying that I am, but how do they know I'm not some kind of a thief? And they tell me the greatest idea in the world is, this is going to be the next big thing. And all of a sudden I steal their idea. And I the next day I register it with the WGA or the Library of Congress, and then I steal their idea. Then I have to turn around and say, oh yeah, I stole it from you. Prove it. So that you always have to think about that. Like, you should never, I don't think, freely tell your ideas without an NDA. Doesn't mean you don't trust the person. You're just protecting each other. And again, it goes both ways, because they don't know what we're working on. Now, I could tell them that after they tell me the idea, but I much prefer an NDA. And a lot of times when they tell it to you, though, it's the goofiest thing in the world. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a funny idea. Okay,
Right.
Yeah, it's just you say, okay, I hope you make it. I hope it's good enough that we can screen it for you.
Mm-hmm. No, that or just again, they might have a good idea, they just didn't promote it well, but you don't know until.
No, for sure. But yeah, I mean,
it's so true. Well, why do you think so many people just? I mean, I would help out some film buddies, and they just continually would just be like I kid you not, I gave this one pal who's no longer a pal, like some documents, like just NDAs and everything, and they just were not using it. And then the next day they're like, "Oh, I lost it. Can you send it to me again?" I'm like, "Dude, this is like second nature. This should be. You should."
Are you talking about getting them to sign it or getting them to?
They needed some NDAs, and they just could not help themselves. They would always find a way to just forget about it. It's like, dude, there's no conversation until you have this paperwork signed. Then you can talk about whatever the hell.
I think that it's almost more. I don't mean to sound like I'm mitigating the situation that you found yourself in, but I think
Go ahead.
I think it's I think it's even more basic than that. And I could cite myself as an example because I've directed before and film and theater, and I could tell you right now, I don't know jack shit about. I'm sorry, I'm cursing. Is this like?
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. I've been behaving myself. I tend to use a wide range of vocabulary, so I've been trying to censor myself at times. I just didn't know who this was airing to.
No, it's fine.
But no, I think I could use myself as an example. I don't know jack shit about like technical things. I don't know. I'm not really good with computers. I don't know anything. Like if I'm shooting a movie, I don't know anything about cameras. I can articulate a shot to somebody, but I'm not the one that's going to do that. I don't know the difference in lenses. I don't know any of that stuff. And a lot of times with films, if they have a first assistant director, especially on an indie, that does the breakdown, does budget top sheets, or even full budgets for them, if the UPM doesn't, or if they are sharing roles with that. So really the director is often the person that needs to know almost the least on a film set. And I could say that having been a director who knows the least on a film set. But the reason I think that your quandary could perhaps be more basic than just an NDA is I've dealt with that on this end as well, where if I find that if the filmmaker, or if the director rather, is the one sending us the film on Film Freeway, they're the ones that tend to have the most problem if it's something technical, like a DCP conversion or something like that. They get flustered. They don't know what they're doing. They act like it's a surprise. It's because there's a thing with directors where they're almost like the nutty professor. It's almost like not all of them. I don't want to sound like I don't want people saying, "Oh, well,
just some in this particular instance." Yeah, that's
right.
fine.
There is a certain. So I'm being diplomatic about this because, again, I don't want people thinking, "Oh, this festival director is like contemptuous of filmmakers." There's a certain clade of directors that lack a certain amount of technical expertise and personal organization, which I would expand to reading emails that contain moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny to me because, again, it takes all this effort and energy to make a movie and skill, and then they just totally go to pieces when it's something that's like simple or something you're asking them to do. It becomes, and it's, again, not all, the vast majority of filmmakers I have no problem with at all. Matter of fact, you don't even have to hold their hand or do anything. You just they read their stuff, they do their research, they know what to do, and that's it. And they don't have to. They're fine. You don't have to do anything with them. But there's this other little sort of sliver of the community that it's like they're not the nutty professor. They're smart. They're creative. They're artistic. They're brilliant. But you give them anything that requires any sort of streetwise or any sort of like finesse, they just go to pieces. So I don't think the problem. It could just be that they don't read things, because every year I deal with a certain, whatever the percentage is. It's always in its proportion.
Very well could be, but yeah,
they don't read their emails. They don't know. I mean, I had a filmmaker. I mean, we send out scores of emails throughout the year to our filmmakers, checking up on them and seeing if they need help with anything and all this with the DCPs, for instance. And I had a filmmaker the day before our festival portal closed on our curation partner's website. This is the day before the thing closed, not to send them the DCP, just to fill out the portal information, so that the curation company would know what festival the film belonged in. I had a filmmaker text our operations director asking, "Hey, what's a DCP?" And it's like, you were selected like months ago. Now this is so yeah. I mean, I think it's just getting, certain people just don't like to read emails. And that's the other thing. That's another good piece of advice to give filmmaker: keep your contact information up to date on Film Freeway. It's the only way that we have. If we don't know you, that's the only way that we have to get in touch with you. So make sure your email's up to date. Make sure your phone number's up to date. Make sure it's nothing stale dated, because if it is, the festival that you're submitting to is no way to get in touch with you. And that does happen. I've had to actually track people down on Facebook before who I could not get in touch with. Like you call them, number's out of service. Email, clearly stale dated because they're not answering anything on the email. So yeah, it's really just that. I think it's not complicated. It's common sense stuff until you realize common sense sometimes isn't that common, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Altogether, I mean, that this is definitely a good way to close this out. What do you recommend doing when, again, you've had a good film shoot, you have some promising, festivals to screen your short or independent picture at, and just at the very last minute, someone reveals, hey, we failed to get all the proper paperwork signed. Well, what's the best way to remain calm and just try and get it figured out? Or
when you see paperwork, I want to answer your question as best as I can. When you say paperwork signed, are you talking about some kind of a qualifier for the festival, or are you talking about something like
just in general, like
you get someone, music rights or something?
Yeah, you had written permission, but you lost the paper, or someone gave you a promise, but that was verbal. It wasn't, and someone just did not.
Right.
I get it. Sometimes, like you say, it is just people being dumb, and other times, they collected all the paperwork, but they forgot just one. There was just one that got away.
Sure.
What do you recommend doing then?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think in any situation, at anywhere along the process, once your film is selected by a festival, if you have a problem, just for like anything, you're not sure, you're unfamiliar with the format that the festival requires. You want information on like what good hotels are in the area, or what goes into, how they should approach the festival. Or like you said, somebody, maybe the music rights didn't get cleared, or you're worried about having the final print ready before the cutoff date. If the festival needs materials, call the festival. Anyone who calls it, we're on the side of the filmmakers. Like, I want your movie to screen, and I want it to be a huge success for you. I'm on your side. If the earlier we know, the better. But that's absolutely 100% happened. I had filmmakers that they were, I don't know why they waited this long, but they were from, I feel like they were from like Sweden or something. And they weren't going to be done posting their film until like 4 days before our festival. Though we had already accepted them into, they had sent us a work print. But I told them, look, I mean, like, if we're up against a wall and we have to make a DCP for you, I'll do that. I'll do whatever it takes to get you the screen. But I need that film. Otherwise, I'm screening a work print, you know?
Mhm.
And so if you can get it, and they did get it to us. And luckily they let us know early enough that they were going to be coming in late on the deadline. But always just reach out to the festival. Because if a festival, whoever you talk to on the staff, like I'm very approachable. Like if they call the send flow like our main number, probably 99 times out of 100 they're going to be talking to me anyway, because I usually have it's a mobile number. I usually have it with me, particularly like on season when it's closer to the festival.
Mhm.
But they can always leave a message. They can text it. I mean, I'm very accessible. I don't hide behind anybody, because ultimately I'm going to be the one that has to answer most of the questions as it is. But call the festival or email the festival, explain what it is. And if the festival, for whatever reason, has some kind of a cop of shit attitude about helping you, you probably don't want to be in that fest. That's not going to be a good experience for you. I mean, every festival should treat, you know, like they're incubating baby, you know, chickens or something. Like it should be something where all of the films are very special, and like a nursery. Like you want all of them to succeed. You want all of them to be, you know, have a great screening, look great, sound great, have the audience reaction to be stellar, the other filmmakers to be impressed. I mean, you want that. You're rooting for the films. You're rooting for the filmmakers. So yeah, if a festival gives you an attitude, that's like there shouldn't be a reason for that. It's probably not a festival you even want to be in if they do that. You know, unfortunately, you usually find out too late. But I mean, we as filmmakers, we've been in bad festivals, and so we really kind of like know, okay, we're not doing that. You know,
Right.
whatever that happens to be.
Oh, totally. And there's just no reason for it, like you say. And
Yeah. No, just stay in contact. Reach out to them. I mean, and of the vast majority, well, I shouldn't say that. That's speculative. A lot of independent film festivals are run by filmmakers, so they'll get the same. You know, you could talk the same language to them, and you get the same. Like, if there's a problem, that filmmaker can help you out with it, because you know the person running the festival is probably a filmmaker. Maybe not the gigantic festivals necessarily, but certainly a lot of the indie festivals, filmmakers. You know, and they're doing it for the same reason the filmmakers are. It's just the love of film. So yeah, always stay in contact with them. I know for us, of course, we're always rooting for the filmmakers, and that's why we're always trying new things. I'm right in the middle of something now where we have an expansion project where the founder of our festival came to us with trying to do like a not an offshoot, because it's not a separate festival, but a program of our festival. We're doing it on a cruise ship. So not the main festival, but an expansion program festival that'll be screening on a cruise ship sometime in September. So we're finalizing that right now. So you're always trying to do stuff that's going to be fun and you know, engaging for the filmmakers to have, and stay organic.
I like that, especially staying organic. Why do you think so many people just one trend I'm also seeing is people will complain about movies being unrealistic and yet kind of not heed those words. Then they'll play around with some cool acting but not try to make just a very realistic kind of movie. Do you feel like a lot of people could benefit by, again, you know, hanging out at these festivals, even taking acting courses, even if they're not planning on being an actor and more of a filmmaker?
Well, acting courses always help. You know, I mean, film acting is obviously it's completely different than acting on stage. I mean, I've done both, and I mean, I still do actually. I just wrapped up a quick
Congrats
on a film. Oh, no, I wouldn't congratulate me yet. I haven't seen the movie. I could be awful in it. But I've done, you know, having done stage and having done film, I find that, like, one of the things that it would behoove anybody that's into acting to, you know, understand, it's night and day. I mean, it's like, it would be like somebody, I'm not comparing myself to Michelangelo by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't want to seem like all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this guy's ego just blew up. But like, if you took somebody like a Michelangelo he was a great, he could sculpt, but he could also paint. But he had to use different techniques and different tools for each. They weren't the same thing. And I think that if someone acts in film or acts in theater, which is tons of actors do that. It's a completely different skill set that they require to do them. Because I mean, let's face it, if you're acting in a movie, you never play the part. And people think you do, but you never really play the part. I mean, you're like, oh, walk through a door. All right, that's it. Okay, go to lunch, come back. All right, now we're going to get you walking up to the door. So it's all like bits and pieces and slivers and moments of it, all juxtaposed out of order, that you hope that you could, over the days, weeks, months, however long the movie takes to shoot, that you hope you could put something together for the director and the editor to cobble into some semblance of a linear narrative at the end of it. It's like somebody dumped a puzzle all over the floor, and you're just like working on like painting one little piece at a time. Whereas stage acting is the opposite. I mean, you get to, once the thing's put together, you play the role from A to Z, front to back, live in front of an audience, no cuts, no stops, no retakes. It's utterly different experience. And that's why a lot of actors, they don't say this a lot, but a lot of them that I've talked to, they much prefer theater to film, that have done both. And I was actually at Svenflow before it was handed off to us. I was talking to an actor he's been in just scores of things. I mean, he's just got done shooting the new Beverly Hills Cop, and he was in the original, all the original Beverly Hills Cops, I think. And his name's John Ashton, and we were like, he and I spent like an hour and a half talking about Sam Shepard plays. Like, it's not that a lot of times film actors are like, they look at that as their job, but it finances a lot of the things that the plays and smaller films and things they'd like to do.
Right.
And so taking acting lessons, I mean, yeah, I should, that always helps, but it's also just go and do it. You could study auto mechanic, skills in a book as long as you want, but until you get under a car, you're not going to understand why certain things need to be a certain way. And you can always find film students and ultra low budget indie filmmakers who need actors to work for free. It's the easiest on the job training you can get. All you have to do is be bad in a few movies, and you'll be like, oh, I'm not going to do that again. Or, oh, that was a stupid thing. And if the director knows what they're doing, they'll tell you, yeah, you're being too big. Just tamp it down. Just don't, you're doing the theater acting. We need you to do the film acting. I'm sorry. I think if that was the question, we had to do.
No, that answered it pretty thoroughly. Altogether, so turnout has been pretty good, and you've been learning lots and meeting great people. Just before we go, just as a reminder for people, just getting up first thing in the morning, who live and breathe film. How do you recommend they organize their day, if anything, that might help?
Oh, what a question. No. As far as organizing their day, the first answer that would come to me, and I've just, because it would be what I would have to do. I would say they have to be very attuned to their own strengths and weaknesses. If you're a procrastinator, don't let that little voice in your head say, well, if you're writing a script, or if you're organizing a film as a director, producer, both, well, I'll write better tomorrow, or I'll be in a better headspace tomorrow. No. Don't do that. Don't BS yourself. Just do it like now. Be very attuned to the necessities of your own instrument. Make sure that if you need to get something done today, do it today. As far as organizing your day, you know better than anyone else would know you. When do you operate better? I mean, do you get up in the morning and you're perky, you're a morning person, or you're more productive? Then knock all your shit out before noon. And then in the afternoon, maybe plan for the next day, or in the evening do that, or take a break and then go back to it. I think it's the actual like organizational forces at play would be different for different people depending on what they're for when they do their work better. It's why you hear some novelists will say, well, I love to write like the second I get up in the morning. I'll go drink coffee or whatever, or booze, who knows. Writers are, they find inspiration. The muse does different things for them, but they might get up in the morning and that's when they write. Other ones will say, no, I write better at like 1 in the morning or at midnight or something. You'll know when the right time is for you, but you have to organize around that, like the epicenter of your productivity and when you can get the most done and what you have to do. Assuming it's not stuff you have to do during, like, let's say business hours. If it's something where you could, obviously you can't sit there calling up, an equipment rental company for gear at like 1 in the morning. Like, that's not going to happen.
No.
but do that and don't get caught up, like, in the minutia of like self-doubt or waiting to say, oh, well, if I hold off and I keep tinkering with this project, then it'll be perfect. It's like, perfection is an illusion. There is no such thing as perfection. If there was, then, everything would have stopped a long time ago when it came to the arts. It doesn't matter if you're an actor, a writer, a producer, a composer, anything. There is no perfect, like, what's your perfect take on a movie? Or what's the perfect performance as an actor you might give on stage? Perfection is subjective. It means something different to all other people. What you might think of as the perfect, partner in life or a spouse or something is different than someone else is going to think. But once people that work in the arts realize, in any art form really, once they realize that perfection's an illusion, they're no longer sort of shackled to it, and they're no longer bound by the constraints of what they think they have to do to get something just perfect. And all of a sudden, their creative choices become boundless with where they can take whatever it is they're doing, whether it's a story choice, whether it's an acting choice, whether it's a directing choice, or anything that has to do with the arts, because it's all subjective. And don't wait till it gets perfect, because it's just what's going to happen is you're not going to do it. It's a tool for putting off something that you're maybe worried about somebody feeling or criticizing, like not feeling great about. Nice, and all this. I know people like that. I know people that will tinker with a project forever, because they're worried that putting it out in the ether opens them up to criticism. But you have to, and then you just ignore it. You don't have to pay attention to the criticisms. You don't have to listen to them. Just go on your project. Hopefully by the time the last thing comes out, you'll be on the next thing, and you won't have time to worry about what the hell people think about it. And who cares what people think about it? You shouldn't do it for that.
No, very good, because I will see so many people who is like they've encountered like a bunch of reception, but they're just getting bugged down by just easily avoidable stuff. Like, well, this person doesn't believe in me. I'm like, then find someone who does believe in you.
Do you think Lloyd Kaufman gives a shit what people think about his?
No. Neither did Roger Corman or Charles Band, who made family-operated businesses.
No, but yet to this day, he's still making movies. He's still the exact same way he's done it for pre-video store days. Yep. You don't have to worry about that. If you're caught up in an image, you're gonna, I think, ultimately you're gonna play to that. Like you're gonna be almost like playing a version of yourself rather than just being worried about how people are going to perceive you, which you have no control over anyway.
Right.
Somebody asked, I mean, I don't know that the statistics are right, although I think it was just him spitballing. But I remember somebody, shortly before The Phantom Menace came out, somebody asked George Lucas, like, do you think people are going to like the Star Wars prequels? And Lucas had said that, he's like, look, honestly, he's like, I think that for every one person that loves it, 2 people are going to hate it, and 3 people won't care less. And you just approach it like that. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's out there. Some people will love it, some people will hate it, and some people, they won't see it, some people won't care. But nobody's going to be affected or concerned about the desired outcome or impression of something than the person that's making that, like, than you, really, than the person who is worried about it. And everybody's like that early on. The first couple movies I was ever in as an actor, I was doing the same stuff. I was worried about getting it just right and doing this and that. And then you realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm an actor. I have no control over any of this shit. They could use whatever, the director and the editor are going to use whatever take they want. They could cut the whole scene. It cut me out.
You could give it your all, and they could still just say, no.
Yeah. So now I give it everything I can do as an actor. Anyway, I give it everything that I can possibly give it. And then completely divorce myself once it's over emotionally from the outcome of whatever it is, and then trust the director and trust the editor that I gave them something that's going to help hopefully enhance whatever it is, whatever story it is they're trying to tell, and just do it that way, and not be precious about it. And honestly, there's no point, especially if you're an actor in a movie, because what are you going to do? Like, if the next day if all of a sudden, like, if you and I had a scene in a movie together, and then tomorrow we're working on another scene, and you and I come, oh, you know what? Shit, this would have been 1,000 times better if we do the take like this. We're not going back and shooting that again.
No. Yeah.
So somewhere in the 5, 6, 7, whatever takes of what we did is the best we were ever going to be. It's not like if we were in a play and we come up with that and say, oh, you know what, tomorrow night we can do this. Okay, great. Well, tomorrow night you can have another shot. Movies, you don't. So I always think you kind of just have to just leave it there. And same thing if you're directing. I mean, you have to chalk things up to happy accidents and be willing to accept serendipity wherever it sort of rears its head, because everybody on the set, I mean, it could be anybody, they're gonna come up with accidental, goofy, weird shit that you didn't plan for and could never plan for, that could be seen 1,000 times better, just because they made a weird choice or somebody made a suggestion on the set. And it could be anybody. Like, I'll take ideas as a director. I'll take ideas from anybody. I don't know if the PA could be like, it'd be kind of funny or it'd be kind of goofy if so-and-so did this. All right, we'll try it. What's the worst we could do? Just don't use it. Okay. But yeah, and so that's the whole thing. Is remember, it's art and we're having fun and it's entertainment. I mean, yeah, there's levels to it, and there's stuff that maybe, and obviously documentary filmmaking is an entirely different subject altogether. But for the most part, when you're doing it, just remember, I mean, take the work really seriously, but don't take yourself that seriously. Life's too short to not have fun. And, and that's kind of like my philosophy. I take Senflow, the Central Florida Film Festival, very seriously. I take the work I do, producing and writing and acting and directing and anything, extremely seriously. I don't take myself seriously at all. I don't care if I look stupid doing something. Who cares? Whatever. Because some people are going to think I look stupid anyway. Other people might be like, "Oh, this guy knows what he's talking about." I mean, sorry for them, but but really, it's I mean, just remember, don't lose yourself in it, and in that way, in that respect, and don't beat yourself up over stuff that you maybe could have done better. Everything is tuition. Everything's tuition, and there's a tuition cost, even if you didn't pay out of pocket. If you made a movie and that movie wasn't what you wanted it to be, your tuition was your time, because you're never going to get that time back. But what you can do is use that experience to make sure that your next movie is better than your last one.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that is all just very, very underplayed. It does seem like so many will want to just have the luxury of saying, "Oh, I want director's cut." And it's like, no, just remake it or do it differently or take unused ideas and use it in this new project. I don't have time to remake something that, overall is just not going to mash up, 5 years.
Well, no, and I mean, if you're remaking a film of your own that was like a short or something and they wanted to remake it, it's like, why do something else?
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless you have a really compelling reason to revisit that material, or if you're independently wealthy to the point where it doesn't matter if you spend the money to basically do the same thing, do something different. Because I don't know. It's like, I don't know why you'd want to retread that. I mean, even stuff that doesn't need to be remade. I mean, one of my producing partners and I, we had made a film. Actually, it was the first film that got into the Central Florida Film Festival. Or Sunflow was one of the festivals got into that. And we ended up doing kind of well in it. We expect to. But that's even a film that, like, if it ever comes up to this day, that producing partner and I, who we were both in it, we both produced it, we kind of sort of co-wrote it all. My partner he did the actual. He's more like Trey Parker. I'm more like Matt Stone. He actually writes he sits and does all the legwork of the script and stuff like that. And I'll come in and bang notes off him and then just spitball ideas and stuff. But we produced it together and he directed it. We were both in it and all that. And that was something where even to this day, if it ever comes up, we'll be like, we should have cut this scene out. And that shit should have been cut out. We didn't need this. But we're under no compulsion or we have no reason to go back and revisit it. Like, it's kind of done. It did its festival thing. It's on YouTube now. It's like there's no reason for us to go back and tinker.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something where to this day we're like, so we should have cut more shit out, and then it would have gotten to more festivals, because then it could have been 20 minutes instead of 29 minutes or whatever.
It would work better, or
well, it's easier to Oh yeah. Well, it's easier to program. Films a lot of times, because there's some festivals that won't even look at shorts if they're over 15 minutes. I mean, we're not one of them, but that's some festivals, and I don't think a lot of them are like that. The majors are probably like that. The ones that get, thousands of submissions, then they're like, yeah, if your movie's like half an hour and you call it a short, if it doesn't hold them in the first few minutes of it, they'll just skip. They're not even interested. They won't program it, because their attitude will be, well, if we program this 30-minute movie, that's 3 10-minute movies that we can't screen.
Mm-hmm. It's just not worthwhile.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it does take 20 minutes to tell a story. Sometimes it does take half an hour to tell a story. It's all what the story is. But if you watch a movie, and I have to watch hundreds of movies every year, you start to realize, damn, they didn't really need this scene. This could have been cut. And, that kind of, again, dovetails back into what we were talking about, an hour ago about, like, if there's bad sound in a scene and you can't do anything about it, then take a good hard look at that scene and see if you can't just lose the whole scene and keep the narrative of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do we really need to know that, like, the main character's mother is in, like, therapy? Because if that's not germane to the plot, we can cut that, and the audience will never know that they needed to know that the main character's mother was in therapy. Exactly. I apologize to anybody whose mother is in therapy. I'm not saying that's I didn't say it as a bad thing. I just,
And see, I like how you carry yourself here, because there's just so many people who will just open themselves up. So if anyone who's been paying attention this whole time, what you're doing great is answering every reasoning, and then any other subtext behind everything you're saying. It's just
no. That's my fault, because I'm terribly tangential, and I'm also terrible with, like, questions that have to deal with, like, absolutes. But maybe it was Freudian. Maybe I said it because I think my own mother should be in therapy. So look at it like that. But
at least you're being extra careful, though.
No. Well, everything gets sort of misconstrued, and I have no problem being a popinjay. My problem is that I also, I have a tendency to have to watch what I say to not be offensive, because you never know what's going to offend people or trigger people. I mean, I can only, obviously, I think it's ubiquitous with anybody in life. I mean, you can only be so careful. Otherwise, you get into that South Park episode where they had the non-religious, non-denominational, non-offensive Christmas special, where it ended up where they were just doing these weird dances to music by Philip Glass. And because no one wanted to be, everyone was offended by everything, including Christmas lights. So I'm kind of realistic about, I don't go out of my way to upset people, but you never know. And honestly, if anybody's been listening to this point, I'm happy to buy them a drink if they ever come to Mount Dora just for listening for so long. But yeah, shit, what was the question? I'm trying to remember now.
Let's just move on to what, altogether, what you mainly have done a good job at is, again, you're pleased with the attendance numbers. You're pleased with just people showing up and actually, picking each other's minds and what have you. So outside of your festival, so you recommended everyone use Film Freeway. And any equipment?
I don't. Well, hold a second question. Just to clarify, I'm not endorsing Film Freeway as the only outlet. It's the only one that they sort of replaced without a box for submitting. There may be other ones. Film Freeway is just so used. No, what I was saying was that for those filmmakers who do use Film Freeway, is use it as a tool to shop the festivals and look at their rules, their dates, their venue, their prizes, how long have they been running, is my movie something that would look good in their programming lineup. That's what I meant by that, is that it's a great tool to research the festivals. And I'm sorry, I cut you off mid-sentence. You had something else that you were saying.
What equipment do you especially recommend for everyone who's just, you got friends with the same interests, and you got a premise, and you got some free time outside a day job? What film equipment do you especially recommend everyone use? It's just a starter.
Again, well, this is a nice way to say Exhibit A. When I said that some directors have no skills other than directing, I'm one of them. I could not tell you. I know camera equipment that we've shot movies on. I could not possibly recommend name brand stuff. And I've been involved with films that have shot everything from Sony F55s to 8mm footage. But I think that I know this isn't quite what you asked, but I think that if you do have friends who enjoy storytelling and enjoy the film medium as much as you do, and you can all carve out the time together to make a movie, to shoot it on an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Or shoot it on a Galaxy Ultra phone, something with a great camera. Just go shoot the movie. Go shoot the movie. If you've never shot a movie before, that's a great way to do it, because then you don't have to worry about renting gear or whatever, because you can screw up, but you can screw up on such a phenomenally small scale that it's not going to affect you in a way that's reputational or monetary or time. You're not spending somebody's money on a short that might cost $10,000-$20,000. This is something that you could shoot, very economically. You could make a 2-minute movie on your iPhone,
right?
Or shoot a silent movie and then screen it for friends and see if they can figure out what the hell the movie's about. because that's another thing as well. Is it's motion pictures. You're telling a story in moving pictures. I know some film schools will do that, where their first lesson would be to say, you need to tell a story, but you can take 25 or whatever index cards and draw one picture per index card, and then put them in order, and we'll put them up on a bulletin board. And then the easier it is for people to just walk up and look at your pictures in order, and then figure out what your story is, the clearer it is, the better you've told the story through pictures. So you could do the same thing if people are just starting out. They could just make a silent movie. And that's the original movies anyway, were silent before there was such a thing as sound. Sound's just an accoutrement to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's telling a story in pictures. So that's why I say it's hard for me to recommend gear, because I wouldn't want to say something that would lead someone astray. I don't think that I have the skill set necessary to do that. But again, Google, or YouTube. Filmmakers can very easily find other filmmakers talking about what gear to shoot with. Film Courage is a fun YouTube channel, because they have all these filmmakers on there. They'll cover all sorts of stuff, everything from writing.
See, this is what I like it. People throw another name out there, and this is worthwhile, because like you say, you just realize that you can just learn so much just from other people who, gone to the trouble for everyone else.
For sure. I stumbled, and that's a YouTube channel that I stumbled across because, doing, both, working on both sides of the, running a festival, but also, making films or working on other people with films, if I'm co-producing something. I've had to do so much by way of searches and Google and YouTube or whatever, that site just sort of popped up once. Just, you might like this. And I was like, whatever the hell the subject was, just grabbed me. I'm like, oh, I'd like to hear about that. And then it's exactly what it was. It's called Film Courage. But I have to Google and YouTube all kinds. I mean, there's no way that I'm not on some kind of an FBI watch list that I've had to Google for 4 films, whether it's how to crack open a safe or how to hide bodies or how to, what guns do whatever the movie is. It's like, there's somebody's the FBI is looking at me. Maybe not hard, but I'm sure I'm on some
you freak somebody out.
Yeah, why is this guy looking at how to break through a wall and then break into a safe? And
he wants realism in his movie, and
that's what it was for a movie. It was for a diamond heist movie we were doing. We had to, my partner had to do those too, where you're doing all these searches. What kind of gun could do this, or what
Right? Could it blow a lock off? Probably not. Can we? Has someone else already done it?
This type of gun, will this type of gun have an exit wound, or is it the type where the bullet gets stuck in the person? It's that kind of shit. And I'm sure that I'm on somewhat, but I've gotten to the point where I don't even care. It's like I'm making movies, or I'm doing, whatever it is, for working on some kind of a film. Yep, or prop stuff if you're looking at prop guns and things like that. But yeah. I mean, oh shit, I got tangential again and I forgot your question again. Maybe that was the question. I don't know. But yeah, I think if you have friends and you want to make a movie together, go make a movie together. Don't worry about, is it good or not? Is it this? You're not going to come out, making an Academy Award winning movie, or maybe you will. I mean, you never know. Some of the stuff like Project Greenlight has had weird stuff. I mean, you want to talk about esoteric. I mean, when they were doing Project Greenlight, because we sent something to Project Greenlight one time, it didn't go anywhere. But one of the things you have to do to submit to Project Greenlight, or at least you did at the time, was to judge a certain amount of other films. And they're only give you 3 minutes. You have to max out, or be exactly 3 minutes, or whatever it is. And one of the movies we were watching was somebody's 3-minute movie was they shot it on a cell phone, and it was the sun setting for 3 minutes. That's it. Now, how they thought they were getting into Project Greenlight with that, I have no idea. But they did. And so really do anything, play around, experiment, make movies with action figures, or make movies with your pets and then give them goofy voices. You can add After Effects now, where a lot of with cell phones, you could put what kind of amounts to CGI in it. You could make it look like your cat is fighting a dinosaur.
You really can. It is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Just
So
stuff
do
that
that.
was second nature that took like 20 people, maybe
Right.
hundreds.
So do that. Like if you're like, I want to figure out if I can do that, get some toy that your cat is gonna slap the shit out of or bat around, and then drop a CGI dinosaur in there and make it look like their cat's fighting a dinosaur. And at the very least, you'll kind of just screw around with a nothing project and play around with editing and learn how to do it. And because the more you do it, the easier it'll be, the more you'll learn, the less apprehensive you'll be, and the more courageous you'll be in terms of saying, we're going to give it a shot. We're going to go get a camera and shoot a 5-10 minute movie. Who cares? And if you familiarize yourself, if you have your own gear, if you know how to use it, and your own, if you're like Robert Rodriguez, where he did Rebel Without a Crew, his book about, who subjected himself to medical testing to finance El Mariachi, I think it was El Mariachi, where he was, you can do that. It's like, and speaking of Lloyd Kaufman, he mentioned that too. Yeah, major organs come in too for a reason. If you want to, donate a kidney to get your first big budget, do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the point, like Robert Rodriguez didn't know what he was doing. And so he went and figured it out. And the good thing about that is why every time you see a Robert Rodriguez movie and it says written, shot, and cut by Robert Rodriguez, that's what he does. Does the screenplay, shoots the movie, edits the movie. And it's also why he gets so many celebrities to be in his movies, because regardless of whether it's like Spy Kids or Sin City or whatever, he gets celebrities because he goes through them immediately. Like they're not on set for a long time because Rodriguez edits in camera. He knows exactly what shot he wants. So he'll do 2 takes of an actor. And that he's like, all right, moving on. They're like, you sure? It was like 2 takes. He's like, yep, got it. Because he only needs these 3 seconds of a reaction from an actor before he knows he's going to cut to something else. So he learned how to do it himself. So that's another great way to do it. And if you're directing, if you're a filmmaker, the more that you know how to do, the more versatile you are. Even if you don't do it yourself, even if you're not your own director of photography, you can sit there and communicate with the DP very easily, or much more easily than if you didn't know what the hell you were talking about, having cameras or anything about framing or shot composition, much as you said earlier, if you took an acting course and understood, okay, how to talk to actors about what your character wants, what's your motivation, what's your objective, why are you in the room, why didn't your character leave the room yet? You could do that.
Motivation, yeah.
You could do that exactly the same as your with anybody on the film, if you on the crew, if you know what you're talking about, if you know what those what the skills are that are needed for it. And sometimes they overthink it. Actors do it all the time. They overthink the hell out of things. Not just movies. Same thing, theater. I've had people come up to me in musical comedy and, say, oh, this, I can't remember what the hell I was directing. It was like, I don't know, probably Young Frankenstein or Hello Dolly or something. I had an actor come up to me once and they were like, this doesn't make sense. Why is my character doing this? And I finally just have to say, look, it's a musical comedy. It's not supposed to make sense. It's just, it's the audience giggles at dumb shit. It's all it is. You're overthinking it. Just remember your character's this, that's it. So sometimes there is that, sometimes sometimes there's a tendency upon certain people to try to complicate things, and they're not doing it for malicious reasons. They're doing it because they want to get it right, but they don't realize they've thought about something beyond the point of its utility, and you just have to do it and just say, well, it needs to be this or it needs to be that, whatever, again, whoever you're talking to. If you've ever been on a film set, then you don't let the DP and the gaffer go without a time limit, because otherwise they're going to be arguing about the lighting for 25 minutes or 30 minutes, however long you want to give them. No, because you have to be like, all right, guys, come on, got to get this shot, man. We got to move on, because first AD is nagging me. I got to nag you now. We got to get this shot. Don't worry about, the light looks like this in the corner. We'll just figure it out, or rack focus in the edit, whatever. We don't need to worry about whatever the thing is. We'll figure it out. But we got to go. So there's always that with, where people sometimes, anybody on any position will overcomplicate something, and that's okay. As long as they're doing it for the right reasons, that's okay. If they're doing it for ego, if it's an I'm right, you're wrong, that's something different. But if it's two people fighting about trying to make something the best version of itself that it can be, then that's a good thing.
Absolutely. It's just very maddening when it seems like there's many who don't know how to communicate or want to overthink for the sake of it. Just pause, observe, and then let's just, let's talk.
No, it is. It absolutely is. And it's, but you know what? That's human nature. And part of being a good director, I think, apropos of, filmmaker, but certainly a director, is kind of like being a bit of a, sort of a counselor, human resources person, psychiatrist, whatever, to deal with people that are gonna, that you don't have a lot of time to make a movie. You got to get it done so you can move on, and you have to know how to deal with people, and whether, and I don't mean like egos or whatever, although that does come into play as well, but you have to know how to, work through all that with somebody, and sometimes help them find what it is they're looking for. Regardless, again, of their position on the project.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a delight, sir, and I've been glad that we were able to just get real deep for this hour. Anything else that you'd like to just, any networking events you'd recommend people check out this year?
Networking events?
Yeah.
Well, definitely. I mean, definitely go to, if you have local film festivals that are in your town or a city that's near you, go to it if you've never been to a film festival, especially if you're a filmmaker or an actor or a writer, screenwriter, anyone in the film business, or if you like indie film. It's a great resource. It's a great way to meet filmmakers. It's a great way to see what's out there. If you've never made a film before, you can look at, okay, well, what's being programmed in festivals? And it'll also help you to not be intimidated for when you do, if you've never done it, if you do submit to festivals. And otherwise, there's lots of stuff. AFM, if you could afford a ticket to fly out and go to the American film market, that's a very cut and dry, real world way of finding out how to book meetings, do pitches, do stuff like that. And that's a no bullshit thing. Like, if you suck at pitches, you'll find out real quick at AFM. But you also want to hone that sort of stuff. Use the internet. It's your friend. If you want to know how to do pitches or how to make movies, how to do anything with movies, go on YouTube. Somebody somewhere is telling you or wants.
Exactly.
It's free. Use it. Well, unless you pay for the no commercials or whatever. But that's a free resource that you can use. And there's plenty of filmmakers that'll tell you all the stupid things they did on their way to becoming great filmmakers. So utilize those resources. And feel free, by the way, I mean, I know it's February, but come December, hit me back up. I'll be able to actually talk to you about what our 18th annual festival is going to look like, who the guests might be or whatever, and that kind of stuff. I have no idea yet.
I'm looking forward to
it. But yeah, no, don't be a stranger.
Others are too. Yeah.
no, I had great fun chatting with you, and please definitely stay in touch. Our next festival is going to be the third weekend, whatever that is. I think the 19th, 20th, and 21st, I think, is going to be our dates in 2024. I'm just waiting on confirmation from that or for that. Nice. But yeah, no, I'd be happy to chat with you again anytime, and be able to give you more information, obviously in the run up to the festival itself.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that is splendid, and hopefully a lot of people got something out of this, and I'm glad you can keep inspiring other peers over there as well. So
well, if I inspire one person, I'll have done something, I guess. But no, it's thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Absolutely. And you be safe out there, and just give them hell.
Yeah, well, don't let the bastards grind you down. You know?
Exactly, man.
Thanks again so much. Have a great night.
Absolutely. I'll let you know when it posts. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up